All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the ICA Show. As always, I'm Alan, your host, joined by Luke, your co-host. Luke, how are you today?
Pretty good, Alan. How about yourself?
I'm all right. A little tired. Semester is ending for both of us, but yeah, we will get through it. So, what's happening today? Today, we had a big tournament, the Dr. Ostfeld Memorial ICA Championships, usually at Bergen Academies, but this time it was at Premise. So as always, we have 5 beginner sections, ranging from unrated to under 1400, plus under 1600, and then the Open. So for today's show, we have 2 siblings that will be joining us to present their games. Now bringing onto the stage, Jessica Lee and Justin Lee. How are both of you doing today?
I'm good.
Alright, let's get right into it. So, Justin, when did you first start playing chess?
I started playing chess when I was like 6 years old, and then
6 years old.
tournaments. Yeah.
And Jessica, what about you?
Also at the same time, it was also like 6 years old.
That is good. So now Justin in particular, started when you were 6, and now you're around 17, 18, and you can even call yourself FM, which I learned as of 5 minutes ago, means FIDE Master. So when did you have this meteoric rise, or was it consistent over your time playing?
I think it was like usually consistent over my time playing, just like improving. I think, yeah, like around last year I've been doing pretty well though.
Yeah, that's good. I remember last year you were starting to play in our opens, and I'd say you played many other tournaments, and there was a time in which I'd see you play 2 days in a row, and you'd win every single game. What's the key to your consistency?
Like I remember that. I think just like believing I can win every single game, like just being confident, because like, that affects a lot.
That's good, especially when I talk to some people, especially when we speak about Carl Con openings. After move 3, they always say, it's a draw. I know it's going to be a draw. What do you say to those types of people?
I would say like it's not chess, like even in a simple position, it's never really a draw. You can always win from like some positions. Like for example, I play like Petrov for black, which is like symmetrical opening. But if you look at my chess space, I'm like 4 to 5 with it for black in like FIDE ready tournaments. So yeah, just like because people try to like they don't really know how to play against it. So yeah, there's no opening that's really a draw. You can pretty much win from like a lot of openings.
And that's good to hear. Jessica, even though you are not FM, your achievements in this game are still big, if not bigger. You are the organizer of the JL All Girls Tournament. So let me ask you, what inspired you to make this tournament, and how have the rates of participation been increasing?
So I've hosted my tournament at ICA last year, and the turnout was really good. It was like around 30 participants, but basically chess is like a very male-dominated hobby or activity, and as a girl playing chess, most of my opponents have been like boys or older men. So sometimes, not always, like sometimes they put me down a little bit. And then also at tournaments, I don't really see a lot of girls. So by having my tournament is to encourage girls to play more and to get them more involved in the game.
And that is really good to hear. I also noticed this, so does everyone, especially the viewers of our show, seeing that you are the second female to be on the show after Leia around 2 weeks ago. So it's really good to see that. Really good to see that you're making these sort of achievements and these sort of opportunities. And you're going to have this tournament again in 2024, right?
Yeah, we're gonna plan it for in the spring of 2024.
All right, that's good to hear. So now with that, let's get right into the chess. Luke, take it away.
Yeah, so I guess we'll start out with Justin. We'll start with your game. So you start with D4. Just right off the bat, are you a all-around D4 player, or you like to mix it up?
Yeah, I play D4 all around.
Yeah. So knight F6, C4, E6, knight F3. So avoiding the Nimzo, and B6. So already we have a Queen's Indian, sort of a probably we're going to get some sort of dynamic game, and indeed we do. So G3, taking a similar approach to that diagonal, and bishop a6. So here, I guess we have another sort of theoretical branching in b3. I heard the first game that this was played in, where I guess it was like Nimzowitsch or one of those guys. Apparently, the first game that this bishop a6 move was ever featured, White just played bishop g2 and like hung the pawn. So thankfully nowadays people know better. So b3. I'm assuming this is still prep, right?
Yeah, it's pretty standard.
Yeah. So bishop b4, bishop b2, and you retreat. So
And here, I think the right move is like knight c3 for white, but
yeah,
I don't remember that, so I played bishop g2.
you have the Sam Shanklin course.
Yeah.
Your prep, yeah. So castles d5, so taking some space in the center. Queen c2, castle. So okay, all pretty standard moves. Knight b2, and I guess here is another sort of interesting moment after knight h5, where okay, we're asking the bishop where it's going to go, right? And your whole setup is sort of geared to play e4, so you decide to retreat to e3. At any moment, did you consider maybe leaving the bishop on f4 to be captured and to allow the doubled pawns?
Like no, I didn't really consider that, but I know his position like it's not really that good for white already because like I was supposed to go knight c3 instead of bishop g2, so I had this position before. Like I know, yeah, so it's not really that good for me, but
yeah. So bishop e3. So maybe the bishop is going to be a little bit awkward for the moment when it's blocking the central pawn, but it's not the end of the world. f5, and I really like this next move, rook fe1, clearing the way for the knight to reroute via f1 in some lines. So okay, I mean here, the one move that might look a little bit intimidating is a move like f4. Right, this is a move I think a lot of people at home might be worried about. I'll be honest. I looked at this game a little bit before the broadcast, so I was interested to look at some of the lines here. Did you? I'm assuming, of course, you were looking at this during the game. F4. What were you planning on playing here? Do you have a line where this maybe didn't work out for black?
Yeah, so I think just like taking twice on f4 and then playing e4 looks pretty good for me.
Yeah. So e4. Okay, that's what I was looking at to start with. I'll be just to point out, and I did cheat, right? I looked at this before with the computer. Apparently, c takes d5 is winning a pawn in some line. Maybe not here. Okay, e4 is looking good too. Yeah, with a lot of initiative in the center. So rook c8, stopping all that nonsense. No f4. Knight f1 we're rerouting, and h6. So black is gearing up for some expansion on the king side, potentially. a4, playing on the opposite side of the board. a5 is always in the air. And bishop b4. So this one is a little bit strange of a plan because it seems like it's helping you, right, to sort of regroup.
I think that was a mistake, or maybe it's not a mistake yet. Like because bishop d2, he should go bishop d6. Like.
Yeah, and after queen e7, yeah, this bishop is looking a little bit like, okay, it's controlling this diagonal, pointing out that after you play a4, of course, the b square is going to be weakened. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think, with the bishop on e3 was sort of causing you a lot of problems with your coordination. And now this tension seems pretty nice. So a5 continuing, bishop takes d2. After a takes b5, I was curious, what were you thinking here?
Yeah, so I saw bishop takes b4, queen b4, like rook a4, and like queen b6 or something, and like just rook a1 looks pretty good. I'm just like winning the pawn.
Yeah, with interest, it seems. Yeah, this is a nice line. So he doesn't go for that in the game. He decides to trade, and again, it seems like black is sort of helping you in terms of regrouping. Now the knight comes back. The knight probably didn't really have any future coming to e3 or anything, so knight on d2 looks nice. b5, creating more tension in the center, and you decide to lock it down, which Seems right. Now this bishop is looking, you know, like it's a little bit claustrophobic, sitting trapped by all those light squared pawns. So
I think e5 was a mistake right here.
Yeah. Did you have any reason why?
Yeah, so like he had like control of the position, but after e5 I can just take twice and like get my knight to d4, and I just have like a lot of control of the dark squares and use a bad bishop on e6. But if he didn't play e5, he could just play like g5 or something, and like he has control over king side. Like I can't really do much. Maybe I'll still go knight e5, but it's like it looks pretty good for him.
Yeah, I totally agree. After e5, this is it feels right to play e5, right? Like, okay, you lock down the center here, and it seems like this construction with e5, with d4 and c5 is a little bit loose, so you want to break the chain with e5. But yeah, I think I totally agree with you that here, now black has like no breaks, right? All the pawns are stuck on light squares, and that bishop is really gonna suffer. It doesn't seem like there's gonna be a great way to activate it. Even if you play a move like b4 and open it up, okay, nice diagonal, but what is it actually doing, right? Not really anything at all, and that pawn on b4 is going to be a target later down the line. So e3, shutting down all the breaks, and okay, black seems like they're doing what they have to do, right? Trying to play for some sort of, pawn momentum, even if it comes at the cost of opening up their king. So were you at all scared of this attack, or you thought it was...
So if he didn't play e5, I'd be kind of like afraid of this attack. But like back when it's like open position, he doesn't really have any. He doesn't have dark square bishop. He doesn't have many pieces attacking my king. So like I was not really scared of it. But I went rook d1 here to like protect d4, because if I went knight d4 immediately, he could play f4. So
using the fact that this pawn is overloaded. So rook a d1, knight g7. Interesting sort of regrouping here of the knight. Knight comes to d4, setting up maybe it's not working really quite yet, but maybe some tactics with knight takes e6. So decides to cut that out of the equation. Here it's still not working, right? Knight is not quite.
Was bishop h3 good here? Because I'm not really...
Bishop h3?
Well, I think I played bishop h3.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, did I write the notation wrong?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, no. Okay. So bishop h3. Okay, we'll just continue from, as it continued in the game. Okay, I think this is the only point it's... Okay, I thought you wrote bishop f3 on the scorecard. Bishop h3 makes much more sense, putting pressure down this diagonal. So g4. Okay, so we're going to actually get right back to the main variation. So knight takes e6, takes, and bishop g2, right?
It was bishop f1 because
I see. Okay. I was confused with the notation actually when I was... That makes a lot more sense. Okay, so bishop h3, g4, bishop h1. Takes bishop h1, f1 rather, and now we're gonna have to read off. And now rook. Okay, this makes much more sense. So here he plays rook c7. So some flexibility along the 7th rank, maybe swinging over to aid in the attack. And
here just looks like close position. I don't really think he had an attack, because like once if I just play h4, like I mean it might be a draw though, because it's like hard to break for white, but he doesn't really have anything here.
I definitely see your point. Even if you get even if you were to get the pawn to h4, I mean, sometimes this can look very scary, but there's always the option to like even take with the f pawn. Just worst case scenario, right? So
and I could just play h4 immediately to like prevent that, because he can't
shut it all down. So in the game we get rook d4 again, really pointing out these just catastrophic weaknesses on the dark squares here. No breaks, right? So bishop c8, trying to regroup, and like you said, now with not even going to give him a chance. Now h4, right? You shut it all down.
I didn't see f4 here though.
f4 here? Yeah,
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, that actually does look a little bit... Oh, wait, not here.
Or after h4.
Yeah, so f4 right away. breaking up the structure. So you but rook takes d4, rook takes d4, takes, and queen f6. So logic being this pawn, for the moment, is an extra pawn, but it is not long for this world. And I think you do what every coach tells all their students to do when your opponent is attacking you on the side of the board. The general sort of wisdom is to strike back in the center, right? So again, I'm trying to follow from the other variation where you played bishop h3 instead of bishop f3, but e4. So creating counterplay in the center. In the game, he goes rook g7, rook g7, threatening some potentially g3, even g3. I mean, you were of course evaluating this during the game, I'm sure. Was there anything here that seemed dangerous about this attack, or
yeah, I think g3 seemed pretty dangerous to me.
Yeah,
like I was looking at e takes d5, he just plays g3, or bishop f5 first maybe, and then g3. But yeah, this is doesn't look good for me. So so I was hoping he wasn't going to go rook g7, but like I saw if he goes rook g7, I guess I'll just have to go rook e3. Like it's okay for me, I guess.
Yeah. So in the game, we get rook e3, d4, counterattacking the rook. So again, a temporary pawn sacrifice. At least from a aesthetic standpoint, I like what black is doing here. Sacrificing a pawn with f4 to try to win it back, and here they shut down any potential captures. So rook d3. In the game, we get queen takes h4, right?
Yeah, I think you should have taken on f4.
Yeah, this
then
one
I would have went queen d2, and I think he has to take. I think that this still might be better for me. Or actually, queen takes d2, rook d2.
You want to take here, and I guess you're just gonna win this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, let's say, what a move like
b4 or e5.
Yeah, b4 looks nice. Yeah, or actually e5 too. Again, pawns on opposite color of the bishop is gonna constitute an advantage here. That looks like a very nice plan. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Was there takes queen d2? I guess this is just a worse version, right? You're gonna get a
just
pretty devastating. Yeah. So okay, he takes on h4 though. It might look right. It might look like there's some sort of attack on the king side. g3 obviously is always something to be wary of, but unless you can really team up with anything on the h file, it seems like this queen on h4 is the only way it's helping out with the attack is supporting this g3. But I think it might be might look more dangerous than it is what I'm trying to say. So in the game we get sorry, I'm trying to copy back.
I played f5.
We get f5. Yeah, f5 I thought was really nice, shutting down this bishop. Was there any other idea to that, or is this just all you were doing, shutting down that?
Yeah, just shutting down his bishop, like pushing the pawns forward. And yeah, like there's no g3 here because I could just take and trade queens.
Yeah,
and then that should be like winning for me.
Yeah, just to show it. The queen is pinned. Yeah, that looks very nice. So g3 is not there. So after f5, we get queen f6. So a lot of times this f5 move, the downside, of course, is you weaken the dark squares, but there are a lot of positions where you'll play f5 like this, even though it seems like it worsens both bishops. Oftentimes it's black's bishop who is suffering a lot more, and I think this is definitely one of those cases. So queen f6 is definitely trying to claim some dark squares, but you can only fight so long when your queen is the only dark squared, the only piece that's operating on dark squared diagonals, right? No dark squared bishop, like you said earlier. So okay, queen d2, and again, the pawn seemed like it's just going to be a goner. After rook d7, did you have something in mind here?
Rook a7? I didn't really see that, but just like queen f4 looks looks pretty good. I think it might be already winning for me.
This looks very good. Yeah, actually, this just looks. And if we were to do I'm just trying to be, yeah, and then we just pick up this pawn, yeah. So at queen f4, like, yeah, it's probably just game over. So queen d2, the pawn looks like it's gone. In the game, we get h5, right? So taking the h6 pawn off the line of vision of the queen and maybe trying to run forward with the pawns, but okay, we just take, right? Take on d4. And okay, g3 now. So now g3 is coming with a little more punch, but okay, it's not checkers, no need to take. f4 was played in the game, and again, like you said, these pawns, if they get rolling, are going to be pretty devastating for black. Obviously, e5 is not on the table yet because f5 is always loose, but that can be prepared. So in the game, we get after f4, king h7, and now bishop h3. So lining up a e5 in the future. So
we pick queen h4.
Yeah, queen h4, which I guess is just a.
And then here,
blunder,
I was
like, right?
I was planning to go king g2. Then I saw like he can maybe play rook g4. I think that looks a little unpleasant because I don't want to take g4. So like I just change plans and play like f6. I think that just wins also. Yeah,
just either winning an exchange or more. And in the game, he decides to go for just giving up a piece, which I mean, maybe from a practical standpoint, taking here looks like it might give some sort of attack. Maybe queen takes h3, but with the fact that black's king is so open, this looks just really, really bad. No checks, right? The queen is doing a really good job on d2, covering the second rank. So yeah, if you have to play queen takes f6, that's a very sad state of affairs. You're just losing a piece. So bishop takes c8, and I mean, were you expecting your opponent to resign here, or you know?
I thought I was about to win at this point. So like, I thought he was going to resign soon.
So after bishop takes c8, I guess we could just look at how the game finishes up. So he goes g2. Okay, maybe some inkling of an attack on this on the h1 square, but you defend very well, and there's really just nothing if you play your cards right. So bishop f5 check, king h8, and after rook d8, okay, now it's basically, you know, getting about time to resign when you have to lose the pawn on g2. No hope of an attack for black. I believe he goes king f7, queen d2. Very nice placement of the queen, controlling the open file, covering the second rank. This is a really nice spot. And after check, king h2, queen f1. This sort of knight's distance away from a king with the queen can sometimes be annoying, but again, your queen on d2 is doing, you know, is an all-star. So after queen d7, I believe it was king f8, check. I believe this is where black resigned because they're getting mated sooner or later, probably sooner. So yeah, any final thoughts on the game? Any grand narratives that you can draw here?
Yeah, so like I guess in the opening bishop g2 instead of knight c3, that was like already a little bit of a mistake. And then yeah, because you want to play knight c3, and then to get e4 in, you don't want to like allow him to play d5 and c6. And then moving forward, I guess he traded his dark square bishops. That was a mistake because like I wanted to trade them anyways. My dark square bishop was like a hindrance to me. And then like after that, he played like another mistake, e5 position mistake. Basically like allowing my pieces and like letting the position become open. He should have just kept the position closed. And then after that, yeah, I just played positionally. I think when I played rook d4,
you played bishop h3 here, right? Yeah. So somewhere, whoops, bishop. So it was this one.
96.
Yeah. So after rook d4.
Yeah, I think I wasn't like careful enough when playing h4. So I think f4, that was a pretty good move by him. So I should have just been more careful, like maybe play rook d1 first to like not allow f4. So that was kind of like should have been more careful at that point. But then I think he made a final mistake, like queen takes h4, like allowing my pawns to to like advance. He doesn't
Yeah.
really have an attack there.
Whoops. Yeah, here. Wait. It was
Rook
yeah. Whoops. I should have just made that the main variation. Yeah, rook e3 and
e3. Should have took on f4
yeah.
instead, and then yeah, it was pretty much just like smooth sailing from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so very, very nice game. Some mild bumps on the road, but I don't think there were any no full question mark moves. Maybe if you want to be super harsh, you could, like you were saying, maybe there were a couple improvements, but I think all in all, very clean win with a lot of instructive value. So, Justin, very nice game, very nice analysis, and I guess we'll move on to the next.
Thank you.
So, Alan, yeah, you're welcome. Alan, any thoughts from you?
Personally, I was a really big fan of that f4 move. I know it was a minor part, but that move just felt so smooth after he went g3. Yeah, but yeah. So now, before we move on to the next game, let's get into a commercial break. So, it's of course getting time to become winter, semester's always finishing, school's almost finishing for holiday break, which means it's time for winter camp. We're going to have the camp from December 25th to 29th in Teaneck, December 26th to 29th in Glenrock. It's going to be the full week, but you can register for as little or as many days as you want. It's going to be a great time. Camps are always good, instructors are always good. Registration discounts, you can read more about that here. You can see the flyer, or you can register for Glenrock and Teaneck over here. In addition, December 31st, we're going to have our New Year's Blitz tournament. I'm thinking of doing something very special for our show on here, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be good. Alright, Jessica. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Good, because I'm not. Give me 5 more seconds.
There we go. Set up the board, you just gotta share it now. There we go.
Alright, let's do this. So, this game started with d4, d5, bishop f4. Finally, after so many times in the show, we're finally seeing the greatest opening of all time, or the most made fun of openings. But personally, I'm a huge London fan. I don't know if it's because my football club's from London, because it's a beautiful city, or because it's just good opening. I don't know. But regardless, let's move on. See how this system has been played. Bishop f5, knight f3, knight f6. Interesting variation. Something I usually don't see, but regardless. e3, e6, knight bd2, which it's a fair move. I'd personally prefer to get the bishop on d3 first, but regardless, we're just nitpicking, nothing too big. c6, c4, bishop d6, bishop e5, castles,
Yes. So
bishop e2.
just if we go back just a little bit, Jessica, I'm wondering, is this an opening you're like you play the London a lot, or was this a one-time?
Actually,
thing.
my brother taught me the London, like the
Mhm.
very like the strategy behind it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
This is
then
like
I've
one of
been
your main
using-
openings.
Yeah, this is like the only thing I play.
Okay,
Mhm.
so London, purebred, so to speak. So yeah, bishop e5. Of course, the main theme of the London is white gets a really good grip on this e5 square. Any thoughts about this setup from black? A lot of times, black will want to, play in this very symmetrical fashion. A lot of newer players who maybe aren't booked up against all the main variations in London. This looks like a very logical way to play, but I think you play very well against it. Do you want to maybe illustrate some of the downsides of putting this bishop on f5 so early for black?
It kind of like limits the mobility of it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I like the c4 plan that you played. For any maybe London players or players who don't like playing the London, it's always important to notice when this bishop is on f5, even though it might not be the end of the world, this b7 pawn rather is always just a little bit softer. Now that the bishop is no longer on c8, c4, the main imbalance here is, of course, in the placement of the c pawns, and the queen might be finding a nice square on b3 to apply some pressure down towards that weakened pawn. And given the fact that white is, of course, moving first, black is just oftentimes going to be just a little bit too slow to meet them. A lot of times you'll see this like standoff with the queens like this. Sometimes a c5 will force a nice endgame for white after the trade, open file, a lot of expansion on the queen side. In any case, in the game, bishop e5, keeping the tension. So interesting decision. We castle, bishop e2. So Alan's idea earlier of going bishop e3 a little earlier maybe would have traded off light squared bishops, but I think you can very much make the case here that white's light squared bishop, or rather black's light squared bishop, could get a little bit, offsides on this diagonal. Even though it might be open, there's not a lot of targets down there. So we take, knight takes. So e takes is interesting, but I like your decision, keeping the center intact. And knight e4 by white. So very symmetrical play black is going for here. Maybe trying to trade off some pieces. From a practical standpoint, were you trying to keep pieces on the board? Were you maybe, thinking your opponent's going to just try to trade everything off and kill the game? What were your thoughts here?
I kind of wanted to maintain the e4 square, so that's why I went knight f3 next move.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I might have written down the notation wrong again. I had you castling first, and then knight f3. Whatever the order. Okay, now hopefully we're transposing. So knight d. You had a very nice handwriting. So if there were any notation errors, that's on me. So okay, knight d to f3. Again, really nice control over this e5 square, and some echoes of the last game where we're seeing a position with all the center pawns on light squares for black, but they have a light squared bishop, right? So in a lot of positions, this will very much favor white's bishop because it's complemented by the color of the central pawns. Right? It's going to zigzag in and out. It's going to control the opposite color of their pawns and sort of mesh very nicely together. Could black have played f3 after knight e5, comments Yakov, and what would you have done? So after knight e5, maybe here, he's saying. f3 after knight e5. Maybe after knight e4? Maybe he's saying f6 after... I'm a little bit confused on Yakov, your question. Maybe in what...
There's a little delay, so let's see.
Yeah.
Let's wait for him to...
Maybe we'll
we can
move
keep
on.
going, but let's see if he responds.
Yeah.
Look, he said yes. Yes to what? f6.
Yeah. f6. Yes. Okay. So here,
My bad.
maybe. I'm assuming f6 here. So something similar, I believe, happens in the game. So here, did you have any intentions that you were looking at, in your calculations?
I didn't even see this, but if he played that, I probably would have just taken on d7.
Yeah, and this looks like okay, maybe black can make the case that they dislodged that slightly annoying piece from e5, but also you have to play f6, which is going to be a little bit loose. Not the end of the world here, because the bishop can always come back to cover that weakened diagonal, but a lot of times a position like this, after c takes d5, any way you're recapturing is going to be a little bit, just slightly ugly, right? If you take this way, whoops, if you take this way, the f6 pawn is looking like a sore thumb, and if you take this way, well, now it's going to be very difficult to ever move this e pawn, because the d5 pawn is going to be very weak. And of course, taking with the queen would be the worst possible option, because something like even like a rook c1, I think I'd be completely fine with sacking the pawn. Rook c1 and bishop c4, something like this, would put a lot of pressure down that weakened diagonal. So f6, always something to look out for. sometimes your knight can get trapped, but in this exact case, it doesn't look like it's the end of the world. After f6, by the way, just for curiosity's sake, do we have g4? This is a ridiculous looking move, but just for the sake of interest, actually, you can probably even just take this. Yeah, you could probably even do something like that. Or can you? Okay, it's kind of interesting. And by kind of interesting, I mean not really that good. Okay. Always moves to look at like that, but c5 played in the game. A much more sound-looking move, striking towards the center. But just because it's sound-looking doesn't always mean it's going to be the most objectively sound. You take on d7, queen takes d7, and now the other knight hops and replaces its sibling on e5. And okay, queen c7, which is a little bit of an interesting decision because they're allowing a transformation of the pawn structure in what I think you could argue is a slightly bad way, right? Because I think you do the right thing here and take on d5. And this potential for an isolated pawn is, going to maybe cause some headaches for black. So f6 here, which is a little bit interesting. This is the first time I'm really considering this position seriously. Was there something wrong with e takes d5 or?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No. Did you have any move prepared here, or you're just going to take it
No,
as it comes? No?
just take as it comes.
Fair enough. I respect the mindset. But f6. So definitely a creative in-between move, but maybe a little too creative because now after the knight just retreats very simply. Well, okay, now it's actually getting a little bit sharper. Was there any reason why you didn't go knight f3? I'm just curious. Like, did you have a plan with knight d3 where, like, was there some tactical or maybe positional reasoning, or it just looked better? Sometimes.
Better.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Maybe you wanted somehow on f4 and then in the future to e6.
That looks like a plan. Yeah, I like the knight on d3. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
actually, yeah, it
criticizing
was
the knight
that.
there. Okay. That also looks very nice. A lot of times these knights on weird, slightly unorthodox squares can be really annoying. f4 definitely is one of those, especially in this position, putting a lot of pressure. So okay, they take. So this person is a big fan of the in-between move, which I definitely appreciate. E takes d4 now. So okay, we can get a position of doubled, or not doubled, sorry, symmetrical isolated pawns. But yet another creative resource by black, rook d8. They really do not want to take on d5, which I guess makes some sense. A lot of times, again, the position looks symmetrical, right? If we look at a position like this, symmetrical IQPs, but that doesn't tell the whole story because not only is the color of the isolated pawn favoring white, right? Because the color of the bishop, but also that pawn is back on. If you could just put the pawn back on f7, maybe it's not the end of the world. So, but the pawn being on f6 is going to cause a lot of problems. Now you always have to watch out for, in between moves where there's a capture on d5 with check, right? This looks actually like a very annoying position to play for black. So I actually like what they did here. Rook d8, trying to keep some tension in the position. So rook c1, gaining a tempo on the queen. Queen goes to d6. So again, white is up a pawn. You could even be up two, but I think, black's whole idea is they're going to win back at least one of the pawns, hopefully both. So in the game, you take on e6, and queen takes e6, which I thought was a little bit interesting. And every time I say a little bit interesting, I feel like maybe I'm being a little too gentle. I think you should really be taking with the bishop here. The queen looks very good on d6. At least it's controlling some of these knight jumps, right? And I don't know, the bishop on f5 wasn't really doing a whole lot. You gain a nice protector of this diagonal now. But after queen takes e6, already there looks like there could be some issues on the light square diagonal. If you could just get that knight out of there, bishop c4 would be winning a lot of material. Again, that's why f6 is not always the move you want to play. yes, you maybe kick a knight off of an e5 square, but in the long run, you create a lot of weaknesses as you're showing here. So knight c5. So not just threatening the queen, but if you were to take this, right, there's always a move like bishop c4 here, which is probably going to cause some problems. So in the game, they go back, bishop c4 anyway now, and okay, now you've cleared with knight c5 one path for a diagonal, and now after bishop c4 you clear out a new potential pin down the e file. So this is I think a very nice maneuver, this knight c5 and bishop c4 little maneuver. So king h8 and very simple rook e1, and this pin looks way too strong to tolerate. The fact that the queen is leading the charge on the defense means I think you're actually maybe just losing a piece by force here. Right? I don't see how you step out of the pin with this queen while defending the knight at the same time. Was there any specific variations you were calculating here? Anything you were maybe worried Black would find? Or
No,
at this
not
point,
really. I mean, just
no?
like you're obviously just gonna win a piece. There's not really any
Yeah.
defense for it.
Yeah. It seems like a pretty difficult spot here. I mean, maybe like the only thing you really have to watch out for here is like any potential like queen takes c5 or something. I think that's maybe even here is maybe like the best hope to try to play. But of course, this is a losing, definitely a losing position with a move like, rook e7, for example, is going to be really, really bad. Again, that f6 weakness is showing its ugly head. And of course, the exchange for white in that position is only going to help. So in the game, we get rook f8. That is not going to cut it because, okay, put pressure on the pin piece, right? That knight is going to fall off the board sooner or later. So bishop e5, a nice move. There are, of course, other ways to win as well. Probably taking is working, but I like this fine touch. Bishop e5, just kick the rook out of town. And yeah, here seems like a fair place to resign for Black. Too many threats. F3 is coming. Rook is under attack. In the game, they try b6, which is an interesting way to complicate things, but you calculated well. You just take and whoa, what? You just take. Okay, I don't. That was a weird technical difficulty on my end there. You just take on e4, get that knight out of the way, and after all the exchanges, f3 is going to pick up the piece. And okay, very nice conversion. We trade everything off, and that king on h8 checked from the bishop that was weakened from the f6 move. That's going to spell disaster because at the end of the day, queen e2 is not just threatening rook e8 to win the queen, but you can't even step up because it's going to be back rank checkmate anyway. So it all comes together at the end. Up a piece, up a rook, and that is where Black resigned. So very nice game, nice opening, and good instincts at the end of the day of where to position your pieces so they can be the most active. So any final thoughts on the game?
I think the pin was like a pretty good move.
Yes, on this one here, yeah, that's a really brutal way to lose as Black. It seemed like it sort of just came out of nowhere, where all of a sudden Black's position went from looking okay, and I don't think it's a coincidence that after you play f6 as Black is where everything starts to go downhill. So yeah, very instructive game. And Alan, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, credit to the other player, credit to Black though, because even though there was the little interesting creation of the London system, which clearly didn't work out, I like how Black really tried to take the game to Jessica with moves such as knight e4, if I can find it, right over here. So even though there were moves that maybe weren't good in the end, I like how Black tried to take risks, take the game, even f6, which Luke was batching the whole game just to try to take space. Even if there was something like this in the future, which I know created pass pawn for white, but still just things like that to show that Black does have aggressive attacks. Black does have potential in the future to do well with this sort of attitude. But enough about that because our guest obviously was playing on the other team. So good job, Jessica, for just seeing how Black wanted to take the game, take risks, and you just calmly rode the waves and were able to pick off the weaknesses, just like your brother in the first game with picking off Black's weaknesses as well.
Thank you.
All right. So at this point, I would say thank you for coming and goodbye. But as always, just like last week, I have yet another surprise for you guys. So let me just load my surprise. And I had my surprise loaded, but it's not loading, so let me just get my surprise. Here we go. So, this surprise is a physics problem that my brother got in school, and for me it seemed pretty straightforward, but it caused lots of chaos in my house. My house was very evenly split, and there were wild arguments. So I'm gonna pose this question to all of you. You're on this plane. You drop a ball from the center, right here. Where is the ball going to? What trajectory will the ball take? A, B, C, D, or E? So let's go in order of rating from lowest to highest. Jessica, what do you think?
B.
D?
B.
B. And also, anyone in the comments, feel free to answer. So next up we have Luke. Luke, what do you say?
Yeah, I also say B.
And Justin?
It'd be
All right. Anyone in the comments, what do you think? I think the comments are a little shy today, or they're thinking, but let's go through it. So the plane is moving forward. In my household, it was divided between A and D. Nobody said B, but
You could
what?
make the case that it would be like a little bit more, like, say, a quarter between the way of A and B because of like air resistance. But I think B is the answer they're looking for, you know?
So let's rule out Yakov's answer first. Yakov said F. That is definitely not the right answer, because F for failure, and there's no F here. So let's rule that one out. So Brian also said D. He thinks it's D, and honestly, that is the correct answer. According to the physics teacher that my brother had, according to my brother, according to my dad, and according to me, D is the correct answer. I'll explain why. As the plane is going forward and the ball drops, it's not just going to drop like this. It's not just going to drop down, because the momentum of the ball is going to be with the momentum of the plane for the start. So that's why it's going to take this trajectory, as it starts off with the momentum. It's definitely not going to be A like lots of people in my household said, because the ball's not going to go backwards, while the momentum is going the opposite way. But it can't just be flat. C, there's no linear motion, and E just looks pretty funny. I really want E to be the correct answer, but unfortunately the world does not work like E. So yeah, Brian,
really?
Good job. You got it? Maybe we'll see you on the show next time with these correct answers. And as for the rest, thank you so much for coming. I'll see you guys again next week with more guests. And yeah, thank you.